Look at those images carefully. Take a moment, because what you are seeing is not just wreckage. What you are seeing is a message, written in twisted metal, shredded fuselage, and scorched tarmac, sent directly to the most powerful military force in human history. And that message landed. This is not a headline. This is a turning point. Somewhere inside the United States Department of Defense right now, in rooms without windows and conversations without transcripts, people are asking a question they never expected to have to ask out loud. How did an Iranian drone reach a high-value American aircraft sitting on a heavily fortified Saudi base and destroy it? Not damage it, not inconvenience it, destroy it. Because what you are looking at in those photographs is not a wounded machine, it is a total loss. The forward fuselage is shredded to its skeleton. The tail section has collapsed. The airframe has been folded by the kind of force that does not leave survivors of structure. This aircraft will never fly again. The aircraft in question is an E-3 Sentry, the AWACS platform. And if you do not know what that means strategically, you are about to understand why every analyst watching this conflict just went very quiet. AWACS stands for Airborne Warning and Control System. But that dry acronym does not come close to capturing what this aircraft actually is. The E-3 Sentry is the nervous system of American air combat operations. It is the eye in the sky that sees everything. Friendly aircraft, enemy aircraft, incoming missiles, ground movements, radar signatures across hundreds of miles of airspace, and translates that information in real time into a coherent operational picture that allows American and allied pilots to function with a level of awareness that no adversary can match on the ground. When American F-15s, F-16s, and F-35s fly combat missions in a contested environment, they are not flying blind. They are flying connected to an AWACS platform orbiting safely above the battlefield, feeding them targeting data, warning them of threats, coordinating their movements with a level of precision that constitutes a fundamental force multiplier. Remove the AWACS, and that precision degrades significantly. Now understand the numbers. The United States currently operates approximately 6 active E-3 Sentry aircraft assigned to CENTCOM and EUCOM, the commands covering the Middle East and Europe. 1 is stationed in Japan, 1 in Alaska. That gives you a total operational fleet of 8 aircraft covering the world's most active conflict zones. 1 of those 8 was just destroyed on the ground at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. That is not a minor reduction in capability. That brings the combat zone operational count down to 5. 5 aircraft responsible for maintaining air superiority awareness across an entire theater of active military operations against a country that just proved it can reach your assets on the ground. This is the part that the official statements will not tell you directly, but the math tells you everything. Before we go further, a quick note. Analysis like this does not get amplified by the algorithm. If you are watching this, you found it for a reason. Take 5 seconds, hit like, leave a comment. That is the only way this kind of work reaches the people who need to see it. Now let's continue because this story gets deeper. The KC-135 tanker aircraft also destroyed or damaged in the same strike compound, the problem in ways that are not immediately obvious. The KC-135 is an aerial refueling platform. Without tankers, combat aircraft cannot sustain extended mission ranges. Fighter jets operating out of bases in the region have finite fuel loads. Tankers extend their operational radius dramatically. They are what allow a fighter to stay airborne long enough to complete a complex strike mission, return safely, or loiter over a target area when timing is critical. Losing multiple tanker aircraft at the same base, in the same strike, on the same day as an AWACS, is not a coincidence of casualties. It is a surgical pattern. Someone studied the force structure and hit it in a way that degrades multiple interdependent capabilities simultaneously. That is not improvisation. That is planning. And here is where the story becomes politically explosive inside Washington. Members of Congress, including senators with seats on intelligence and armed services committees, have begun publicly criticizing the Pentagon for what they are calling a catastrophic failure of force protection. Their argument is straightforward and brutal. The United States knew Iran had drone and missile capabilities capable of reaching regional bases. The United States chose to park irreplaceable high-value aircraft in open, exposed positions on that base. And the United States did not take Iran seriously enough to protect assets that cannot quickly be replaced. That is not a small accusation. That is a congressional indictment of the strategic assumptions that underpin this entire campaign. If your doctrine assumes your adversary cannot reach your rear area assets, and then your adversary reaches your rear area assets and destroys them in broad daylight on the tarmac of a base in a third country, then your doctrine was wrong. And when doctrine is wrong at that level, the cost is measured in machines that take years and billions of dollars to replace, and in operational windows that close the moment the capability disappears. Now consider 3 scenarios that flow from this moment, because none of them are comfortable. In the first scenario, this strike was an intelligence success by Iran, meaning Tehran had detailed knowledge of where these specific aircraft were positioned, their patrol patterns, when they were most vulnerable on the ground, and which base to target for maximum effect. If that is true, it means Iranian intelligence penetration of either the base's operational security or allied communications is deeper than anyone in Washington has acknowledged publicly. And if they can hit an AWACS on the ground today, the question immediately becomes, what else do they know? And what else can they reach? In the second scenario, this was not precision intelligence, but rather a long-range drone strike that succeeded through volume and persistence, meaning Iran launched enough drones toward enough high-value targets that, despite American and Saudi air defense systems, one penetrated far enough and found exactly the right aircraft at exactly the right moment. If that is the correct reading, then it tells you something equally disturbing, that American air defense architecture in the region is insufficient to protect static assets from saturation drone attacks, and that gap does not close overnight. In the third scenario, and this is the one that has the most significant strategic implications, this strike was deliberately timed as a signal, not primarily to degrade American capability, though it certainly achieves that, but to communicate something specific to Washington, to Riyadh, and to every government in the region that is weighing how closely to align with the American-Israeli campaign. That message would read as follows: there is no safe distance. There is no protected rear area. If you host American aircraft, you are a target. If you allow your territory to be used to project American air power against Iran, that air power can be reached and destroyed on your soil. Prince Sultan Air Base is not in Iran. It is in Saudi Arabia, and Iran struck it anyway. The global implications of that third scenario are enormous. Saudi Arabia has been walking a careful line throughout this conflict, allowing American forces to operate from its territory while simultaneously avoiding any public commitment that would make it a formal belligerent. That calculation just became significantly more complicated, because there is a direct line between the wreckage in those photographs and the question every Saudi military planner is now asking: are we exposed? Has our attempt to stay just close enough to America without becoming a target failed? Are we now a front line in a war we never officially joined? And beyond Saudi Arabia, every regional government watching this development is running the same calculation: Jordan, Qatar, the UAE. The question is no longer theoretical. What does it cost to host American military assets during an active conflict with Iran? Today, the answer became visible. The answer is wreckage on your tarmac, personnel in hazmat suits picking through debris, and a diplomatic conversation with Washington that nobody in your government was prepared to have. The unanswered questions accumulate from here. Will the United States move its remaining AWACS assets to positions outside Iranian drone range? And if so, what does that do to the operational picture over the conflict zone? Will Saudi Arabia quietly pressure Washington to reconsider the basing posture that made Prince Sultan a target? Will Congress use this moment to genuinely constrain the campaign's operational parameters? Or will this accelerate calls for a more aggressive response that risks widening the conflict further? And perhaps the most important question of all, the one that should sit with you after this video ends, is this: the aircraft that was destroyed was designed to see everything coming. It was the eye of the American air campaign. The machine built specifically to ensure that nothing could approach undetected, and it was sitting on a runway, unmoving, undefended, and it was destroyed. The system built to prevent surprise was surprised. That is not just a military problem. That is a statement about the distance between the assumptions this campaign was built on and the reality now burning on a tarmac in the Saudi desert.